Welcome to Windy City Rant with your host, Michael Flores, and myself, Benjamin Saxton. We're so excited for today's guest. He's a part of the MAD podcast, Mental Awareness Podcast. He's won Best of the Fest at Burbank Comedy Festival and Big Pine Comedy Festival, winner of the Bay Area All-Star Competition, winner of the 40th Annual San Francisco International Comedy Competition. Just so you're aware, the level of comedians that have competed over the years at this festival: Robin Williams, Dana Carvey, Sinbad, Ellen DeGeneres, Pat Oswalt, Dane Cook. Not only did he win the damn thing, second youngest ever to do it. Not only that, he's one of two comedians to sweep the whole thing. He has a special on Dry Bar Comedy. He's a husband. He has a three-legged pug. Maybe you've seen him on YouTube. He has over 7 million hits. He's the extremely funny and creative Myles Weber. How are you doing, my friend?
Oh, I'm fantastic, man. Right on. I forgot about half of those things. That I'm like, oh man, right on. Yeah, I've been doing this a minute. Yeah, I'm doing good. How are you guys?
Very good. We're trying to get by in these kind of crazy times, right? It seems like every other week, every other month, there's something new and some new challenge.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Buckle up, man. I think 2022 is going to be a wild ass year too. I think it's going to be wilder than 2020 was.
So you're out in California, right?
I'm actually not in California, even though I have California behind me. I'm in Las Vegas. I was born and raised in California, and my wife and I have been living in Las Vegas for the last 2 years. So yeah, we're out here in the desert. It's cool. It's cool. Vegas is cool when it's open.
Yeah.
It was wild watching it do a pandemic. That was super strange. But yeah, no, Vegas is cool when it's open. There's a lot of work out here, comedy club wise. So we've made good friends, and it's got a good comedy scene. A lot of real strong comedians moved here, and a lot of friends of mine. So yeah, and then people are always passing through. So yeah, it's dope.
Yeah, and you've kind of you've done cruises, you've kind of been around the world traveling. So where are some of the more interesting places that you like to perform that you've had the pleasure to?
City-wise?
Yeah.
City-wise, I always love Seattle. Seattle's one of my favorite cities in the country. Always. I started going up to the Northwest in my early 20s. When I was just getting going in stand-up. That was one of the first places I went that wasn't California to perform. And so I've been going up there pretty regularly every fall and spring. I kind of time it that way because that's the best time to be up in the northwestern part of the country. But yeah, I love Seattle. Love that whole area up there. It's really great to perform up there. Also really love Chicago. Chicago's a super fun city. Yeah,
love to hear it.
Yeah, man, Chicago's dope. Really, really dope town. Good culture. They don't give a fuck. They're very Chicago. Easy to get around. I really like the train system. I was like, oh yeah, even an idiot like me can understand this. New York gets real complicated. I need like a buddy or a handler or something
for sure
to get around New York. It's a lot. But yeah, Chicago is super duper dope. Really love Chicago. And there's parts of the Midwest too that are alarmingly fun to hang out with people. I mean, it just, yeah, I tend to have a good time everywhere I go. It's really easy to like a town when you're only there for like 4 or 5 days at a time. I feel like that's the perfect sampling, and usually that's how long I'm in town for. There's places where I'm like, yeah, this is probably perfect. Like when I go to Portland, I'm like, 4 or 5 days is enough.
So you brought up Chicago.
Oh yeah.
Chicago pizza. What's your ruling?
Oh God. I mean, that deep dish is a casserole, man. I don't know if you could constitute that as a pizza. But I think I had a deep dish from Gino's East. And that was a really solid one. Very good. Yeah, really, really enjoyed that one. I think that's the only one I've had is from Gino's East because it's attached to the Comedy Bar, which is the comedy club in Chicago that I've done before. So yeah, I've done Gino's East. I've had the casserole, as you call it, man. That deep dish pizza. So yeah, man, it's good, but I mean, given the option, it's different. It's something like, hey, you're here, you don't come here a lot, fuck with it. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll mess with this. But it's not something that, hey, yeah, you want to order like a deep dish Chicago? I'm like, no, why? Goodness, what are you doing? It's Thursday. Are you high? How high? Like,
well, if you see people from the Midwest, that is something that we do. You order the deep dish on a Thursday, and little sausages walking around. It's fine.
Just going into that Friday heavy. I like it.
Yeah. So, I mean, and the deep dish pizza. It's not like New York where it's like on every corner, right? You can just like $1.50 and you have like a can of Coke and a slice. Like it's a 45-minute wait just for
It
the pizza.
is, yeah. That's the thing they let you know, that it takes them a while to cook it, and I'm like, oh man, this is a commitment. Like this is now a part of my day.
Yeah, for sure.
That gives you more time to drink. That's what it is. It's now they want you to hit the bars so that way you can
Yeah.
wait for that pizza.
Yeah, it's a process because they know that you have to soak it up, right? Because I mean, if you're drinking for 45 minutes an hour, just pounding them, you need the heavy carbs to soak that up. So they know that you're reliant on the pizza at that point. It's a real sadistic relationship.
Did you have to come out to Chicago in the winter, or were you fortunate enough to be in the summer or spring?
I've gone to Chicago in the spring and fall.
Oh, there you go.
And it was very, very nice. Fall was cool, but I could tell like in the mornings, I was like, oh, nope, I'm not doing this. I see how this sucks. So yeah, no. But yeah, man, I was able to actually get good weather in Chicago. Didn't get all of the wind, which was nice. So yeah, Chicago's a cool city, man. I really dig it. It's got a groovy vibe. A lot of murals on the sides of buildings. I'm a big fan of that. I'm a big fan of communities who are just like, this fucking building looks like garbage. Let's just paint like a woman and her tit out. Like just something fantastical on the side of this building. There was one building that had like the Cheshire Cat along the whole side of it drawn on there in Chicago. And I was like, this is super dope. So yeah, Chicago is definitely up there.
I love how you understand us so easily already. I mean, that's perfect.
So, with everything being shut down, have you been able? You moved from California, you're in Vegas, travel around. Have you still had an issue with comedy clubs being open, or is everything pretty much open now?
I mean, everything's pretty much open. I mean, they just have different regulations, I mean, California is going to have different rules than everybody else, pretty much. New York sounds like they're doing kind of the same thing. But I mean, I kept going throughout the whole pandemic. I think the longest I took off was 90 days. And that was the longest I'd ever taken off in stand up in my life. As long as I've been doing it. And so, yeah, I did stand up during the pandemic when it was like social distancing, taking the temperatures at the door and everything. And everybody's got to wear a mask, and they were like policing the room super hard. And some places had like a shield in the front of the stage that you would perform and behind. I'm like, all right, they're trying, man. Like, hey, they're trying. And stand-up's an easy thing to keep going. It's just one person talking. It's not a band. This is definitely as isolated as you're going to get. That's a good thing about comedy. We come to save the day when it's just like, we could do these fancy shows that we want to do, but we can't. So what can we do? Put a comic up there. So yeah, man. So they really kept it going. A lot of places were doing cool things during the pandemic. I know my home club in Sacramento, Laughs Unlimited, they were doing a silent disco outside, like a silent disco. They all had headphones, and that was weird to do because you have to wear the headphones too, because you kind of need to know how loud you're being, but also just like it's really important to hear what they're hearing because you are seeing. We were outside, so where the club is. Yeah, you can see everybody. Yeah. So we're outside, and I'm on a riser, and they got the spotlight and everything, and I get the headphones, and they all have headphones. They're sitting in the little pods out in this parking lot, but it's a very high tourist area. So it's like this. It's a tourist trap. There's all this stuff happening and everything. And somebody got pulled over right next to the show during one of my sets, and you can't really comment on this stuff because sometimes it's like you're hearing stuff, but they don't hear that because they're tuned into the show, and you're seeing things that you can't really comment on because they're all encapsulated in like these pods. They can only see you really, and so that was a weird like ADD test for doing stand-up comedy. It's like, can you do your entire set and watch this weird world continue to happen around you at the same time? So that was interesting.
I've watched quite a few of your videos on YouTube, and you seem to do pretty good crowd work. So I imagine that, that didn't bother you too much, or you'd be able to play it off, and it kind of makes that experience a little bit more special for someone watching it, right? Because it's not part of your set.
Yeah, man. Good crowd work is like a magic trick. You do something that's just for that audience. They're like, oh my God, he made a bird for us. So it's very much so. People really enjoy it, and I enjoy doing it. It's always a challenge, and I feel like I've got a lighthearted enough approach to it that I don't really have very many confrontations or anything anymore. There's not really any more like slamming hecklers and everything. It's more just like, oh, this went well. Like I talked to this couple and they were pretty far out. So yeah, let's throw that up online. Yeah, and I think it's also been good for me. It's been good heckler repellent because putting all these crowd interactions on there where I'm fairly quick-witted online, people tend to see that and go, well, I mean, he's probably not the one if I want to try my luck heckling a comic, which just don't do that. It's a very, very bad idea. But at this point, yeah. Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, we've got our black belts in dealing with drunks, man. Like, I mean, that's what's getting me ready for having a kid. Is I've been entertaining drunks for all of my adult life. So, I mean, at this point, babies are just like little drunks. So, I mean, a lot of the same rules apply. So, but yeah, man, at this point, if I got heckled now, I'd probably be so excited. Just because it's been so long, I'd be like, "Ooh, oh, okay, we're gonna do this now."
We like to ask specifically around that, like a heckler. What was one of the times where it was like one of the most memorable heckles that maybe that surprised you or kind of got out of control?
Oh God, there's so many. There was one time on Halloween at the San Francisco Punchline. They were doing a showcase, and they do like a Halloween showcase where a bunch of the comics show up and perform in costume. And so I was dressed up. I just had the Freddy Krueger sweater on, but I didn't have anything else on. So I was like Freddy Krueger before the fire, like so still don't let me around your kids, that Freddy. So, and I was they put me up second to last because I guess Doug Stanhope was across town. He was going to come and no, not Stanhope, Benson. I'm sorry. Doug Benson was across town. He was going to come over and do a set, and they were like, "We'll give you the light when he gets here and let you know, but just keep going until he gets there." And there was a table of people. It was like 4 or 5 or 6 friends. And they were being a problem all night. And it was a packed crowd too. They were red hot. This is not normal Halloween crowds, which is just like nothing. This was, for some odd reason, a really good night. And they were just being a problem all night. And I was like, they're probably going to be giving me shit too. So this should be fun. And sure enough, first couple minutes into my set, they started trying to give me shit. And I just lit them up like the 4th of July. And it was great because in those situations, when the audience hates them, like you really got to do a lot to lose the trust and momentum of the audience. So when you know that the hurt line is that far away from you, it's really fun just to dunk on people. And it was great because the audience was going nuts every single line, and it was glorious. And then I just watched security walk up behind the table, and he was looking like he was going to kick him out. And I told him, I was like, I'm not done with them yet. So hang on and just give me a minute and I'll let you know when you can take care of them. And they turn around and look, and he just sat down behind them. So it was this great situation where I'm just laying into you, and you're about to get kicked out, but you're only going to get kicked out when I'm done with you. And so I took like another 5 minutes and just broke them all down one by one. And then security kicked them out, and we all sang na 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 na. And then they left, and then I got the light, and Doug Benson had showed up, and he was like, "That was really funny. Here's some weed," and he gave me like a nug of weed that he just had because he's Doug Benson. So
he did the dirty work. He got him kicked out, and then he had a nice, clean crowd.
I know, right? Yeah, exactly. The heavy lifting was done. So yeah, that was probably one of my more glorious ones. And of course, it's the one that you never get on tape. It's always that. That's why I record everything I do now. So that way I always get those crowd interactions on there, and I put them on my social media. But yeah, that was the one that got away. It's just going to kind of have to live in infamy in my mind and everybody else's that night.
When you're on a cruise, I mean, I got to imagine you've had some drunken idiots too on cruises, and then you kind of put them down. But how do you manage that when you're on a week, a 10-day, a 15-day cruise, and then you got to see this guy, Hopefully you don't see him, but
Oh yeah, no, that's a thing. So I mean, yeah, it's something to be considered. Cruises are a different beast, man. It's a different animal. You know, I mean, it definitely feels like it's the comedic equivalent to playing an away game. Because I
okay.
mean, the comedy club is kind of like home field advantage. This is where ideas are born and played with. So if you're going to come to a comedy club and get offended, well, you just don't understand how words or definitions work or how we function as a society, because this is where ideas are going to be pushed to the line comedically, and we got to see what sinks or swims. And how do you know unless you dance with the line? So that's kind of the thing that we're all agreeing when we enter a comedy club and do a comedy show at a comedy club. Cruises, people are on vacation. They don't want to hear your preachy bullshit. They don't want that line pushed at all. They want to make you can be complained about to HR. Like they could write a complaint about you and they were offended because you mentioned something about politics, which I'm not a political, I never talk about politics anyway, but there's people who bring it up at all. And it's like the whole ship sank. You know, it's
Right.
just you get those situations where it's like you do have to consider that you are entertaining people on vacation. You do have to kind of play the hits. You can't really take any risks or any big leaps with your sets on cruises. So yeah, you're just kind of staying in the pocket, doing the hits, you know, doing the easy stuff that everybody makes everybody feel good. You know, it's like everybody's trying to party on vacation, and so those are the kind of hits you play. But stuff does happen where people get offended and then they complain, and some people try and like lie, and they just try and get you in trouble because they got
People are
so
crazy.
upset. People are very hurt. People are very emotionally damaged and unhealed, and it's unfortunate. But yeah, I had a lady who was saying I said something really offensive to her, and she was totally lying. I was like, I absolutely did not say that. She's like, yes, you did. And I was like, okay, well, shall we, like, do you want to like do this? Are we gonna let's go to, who do we go to? And so we went to my supervisor who oversees the comedians and stuff and is like the entertainment director for the cruise. And she's like, he said this to me. And they were like, did you say that? And I record the audio of every one of my sets on my phone for this reason. Like, this
Yeah.
is one. I also go back and take notes the next morning when I do a set, but for this reason, sometimes people will go, you said this, and I'm like, find me the minute mark where I said this. Let's go ahead and let's listen. And she's like, well, he said, I'm like, da, 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 da. No, we're gonna listen to this. I had her write it down. I was like, write down the words, write down what I said. I want you to write down word for word what you're saying I said. And I knew I didn't say it. And then by the end of it, she was throwing a fit. And they were like, we can't do anything because you just got caught lying. So, I mean, if you got offended, we're sorry, but we make announcements before the show that if you're easily offended, you shouldn't come to the show. And it sounds like you're easily offended, so you probably shouldn't go any comedy shows in the future.
Shouldn't
And
be
she
offending
stormed
these
off like a toddler.
Karens.
I know. These Karens, they just storm off and then they go tweet about me and everything, and then they gotta block them. It's a whole vicious cycle, man. One day it's gotta come to an end.
Well, I think that's good transition because I'm curious on your special with Dry Bar Comedy. You know, they're known for, you know, family humor, clean, relatively clean, right? Stand up.
Yeah.
So, and you've been doing this for a long time. So, you know, I want to talk about how you managed to write a special for that, you know, trying to keep it as PG, I guess, is possible. And then we can kind of get into your joke writing process from that point.
Absolutely. Yeah, man. I mean, yeah, that's kind of one of the gold standards. I mean, like when I was younger, like the Comedy Central Presents were kind of my jam. That was like the, oh my goodness, I can't
Yeah.
believe that comedians do that on TV. Dry Bar has kind of become that now. Like, you know, they're like 25 minutes or so, and it's seen by just as many, if not more. I feel like more people probably see these than have seen like Comedy Central Presents from like the 90s.
Right.
So yeah, man, these things are really blown up, and I wanted to do one because it was just, hey, this seems like the thing I've been kind of chasing after for a real long time. You know, this has been my be all end all. And since I was a kid, I wanted to do stand up on some type of widely distributed platform. And so it was a big deal you know, get the recommendations necessary to be able to get booked to do one. And then, you know, I spent it was probably about a year that it was just fine tuning and dragging and dropping and putting things in and taking things out before it finally got down to that 25 minutes that got put online. And then it was like the week of, it was like a last minute thing. Usually you get booked like 3 or 4 or 5 months out. And so you've got time to be like, all right, this is when it is and everything. The dude called me. He's like, hey, we had to drop out this Saturday. Can you come in and do this Saturday? And I'm like, yeah, totally. I canceled some shows that I had in Chicago. I canceled that weekend. And I was like, hey, I got to go get this credit. I'm doing this, like, this is major. So I got to go. Sorry. And so, yeah, I went in that weekend and it was just like, it just all happened so fast. And it was an amazing night. You know, you do 2 shows and they edit together and put it out there. And it was an amazing night. It was a weird feeling having done it because it's something that's actually it happens very common in just life. But I mean, specifically for entertainers, they call it post-achievement depression. And that's where, like, as soon as you achieve a goal you've been romanticizing for a very large portion of your life, you inevitably get depressed when it's over because you're just kind of like, well, I spent so much time getting off to that idea. I hadn't even put any thought into what happens the next day. Put literally no thought. And that's what we do. You know, you really go, this is the goal. This is the goal. This is the goal. This is the goal. And then you miss the journey all the way out too. You get to the goal and then you're like, oh no, time kept happening. And so that's very, very, very common amongst entertainers. And that happens a lot. And so it was an interesting process to be going through that after a while. And then, you know, it came out and, you know, it's been getting a lot of positive feedback. I'm very grateful that it's been shared.
You killed it.
Yeah, thanks, man. I'm very, very grateful that it's done the stuff that it's done and the people have seen it and it's really, really been enjoyed by a lot of people and that makes me so happy. So that's definitely been a cool thing to see come around. You know, it's been kind of a long game to get to that point, but that's definitely been a cool thing coming around. But then I had what I thought was realistically another set in me. And I hit them up to see if I could do another one. And there were some scheduling conflicts and everything. And if I could do it, it wasn't going to be for like a while. It was going to be, it's going to be like another year or something. Like, nah, because I got a kid coming. I want to get this. I was like, this material needs to be out before my kids are here. So because there's some of the materials to do with that. It's very much so like life transitional things and meaningful things to me. And I was like, you know what? I probably should just do this myself then. If maybe that's kind of the sign from the universe to just kind of do this myself. And so then the process was, all right, let's build this hour. What does this look like? You know? And so just kind of sitting down. I like sitting down and just, you know, fill in the holes. You know, I just like going, I want to write a bit about this. And I have no idea where to start. And I teach comics writing seminars online and stuff like that to go over stuff like this. But it's like, you know, you just kind of fill your holes, you know, all right, well, here's the details to the bit or the story or whatever it is. And then I know that the beats need to go in here. So what are those? And then let's attack that with questions and let's see if we can get in there. And then it just kind of grows. And then from there, me and my wife talk about it. My wife helps me write. She is a very, very big part of my writing process. I gave her a writing credit on my Dry Bar special and my special that's coming out in a couple weeks here.
Where can they find that special?
If you go on my YouTube channel, Myles Weber Joker on YouTube, it'll be available to stream for free on December 12th, 12/12/21. Awesome. Gotta love those 1-2s. So yeah, man. And it was just a super cool thing how it came together. You know, friends of mine who are doing well in like video recording specials and also editing big comedy specials are able to help me out with this. And so it looks really, really good. It sounds good. I'm super happy with how it came out. And it's a very raw me special. And it's super not what comedy's kind of been for a long time, because that's the thing is I think comedy's kind of in the middle of a weird influx and a change because for the longest time, comedy has been kind of like the truth to power.
Yep.
And society has been this like the American dream and you can do it and work hard and get anything. And comedy's always, stand-up's always been like, they're lying to you. Don't listen to them. Like they're
LOL.
complete. Yeah, exactly, man. Like, I mean, that's 100% what it is. So we've been that for so long, and now society has become cynical. Like the veil's kind of fallen, and society is like, "Oh yeah, no, yeah, you're right, man. Rage Against the Machine. We had no idea. We should have listened to you this whole time." So it just seems like more audiences aren't as receptive to just bitching anymore, about audiences want something that's hopeful or something that's trying to bridge the divide and find ways to bring people together and not divide people. There've been some divisive specials that have come out lately, and people don't really talk about how funny it is. They talk about like if they were right or if they were out of line saying what they said, and it's just like, how are we here with it right now?
Right.
Like, I mean, at the end of the day, this is supposed to be jokes. It's supposed to be funny. And if that's not the first thing they say, maybe the message wasn't worth that platform, go do spoken word or a story time or something like that, or write a blog post or a book. But you don't have to sit here where for an audience that was expecting jokes and preach to them and bitch to them about how awful things are outside. So my special is it's called Mr. Brightside. So, I mean, it's things I liked about the pandemic. It's things about me. It's fun stories about my life. And then it gets into some more serious stuff to do with my family and my history there. And so it was definitely an interesting process, building that special for sure. So, but I'm very happy with it. And it's going to be interesting to see how it's received.
How long does it take you to gather this material? So like, there's some comedians that they can just build material on stage, right? They just kind of shoot the shit. And then all of a sudden, wow, I got 15 minutes, right? How do you come up with the material, and how long does it really take you to build that from that idea to, let's say, a pretty good punchline or joke?
So for usually when I'm doing like an hour special, that takes roughly around, I'd say, a year to write and then about 6 months to 8 months to fine tune.
Okay.
Because I'm real anal about how I put together my sets because I run them every which way to Sunday. So, I mean, typically in comedy, you want a strong opener, a strong closer, and you kind of build your set around that and the ebb and flows of the set and everything. I rearrange everything. And so every joke, I try and find a way to open and close on at some point if I can. I rearrange it in the lineup, see if it works. I see if the set works good forwards. I see if the set works decent backwards. Like, I make sure that it's all interchangeable. I can drag and drop it and it still makes sense. I've got interesting transitions. I do whatever I can. I time them. I know how long each one of the bits are and everything. So that process usually takes about a year to come up with out of nothing, and then 6 months to 8 months to kind of fine tune and tweak and go, okay, I think this is done now. But it's also hard to do at certain places because, I mean, when you're on cruise ships, like I said, you're kind of playing the hits. You're trying to sneak them in weird places where it doesn't go. So it's very interesting to work through it that way on cruise ships and everything. But yeah, that's how long that takes. And it is really a process, man. I mean, you're going to go up and some of these ideas aren't going to work. And you just, you got to reload. And that's a good thing doing stand up. I mean, you do it long enough, you're pretty immune to like the sting of failure, which is a pretty cool superpower. You're pretty into doing most things in life because you're just like, what are you gonna do? What are they gonna do? Laugh at me? Oh no! Like, so yeah, man. We've been beat up so much in the open mic circuit in the beginning stages of our careers as stand-ups. We've got that steel chin, but it never stops. Every now and then, still to this day, I'll do jokes that I'm like, oh yeah, this might work. And then I'm like, nothing. And I'm like, all right, well, let's put it on the shelf, or let's go back and tweak it. What I think there's something here, but not here and here. Maybe I take this off and do this. And so, yeah, it's a puzzle. It's a whole big puzzle. And that's why I love it so much. Cause it's such an interesting, unique thing that you're trying to manipulate people's minds with to get them to involuntarily spasm for an hour. It's a weird agreement.
Yeah, so you mentioned that sometimes you're gonna bomb, and it's gonna happen eventually. So let's say you're in the middle of a joke and it's gonna bomb, but it's got a part two to it. how do you overcome that where you're like, all right, this part 2 is coming, but I already know they hated part 1?
Well, usually I don't do any jokes that I know are gonna bomb, or like I'll do little lines that I know the recovery is gonna get a laugh, where the line isn't necessarily gonna like bomb, but it doesn't get anything strong. But I know, like you said, the next thing that's coming is gonna be good, so I'll do that then. So that sometimes becomes like the superseding punchline of the entire bit. It's like the sneak attack one. So those are fun in their own right. But in situations where you do something that you thought was going to work and then it doesn't, and then you got to kind of keep going. I actually had that last week. There was an audience who was like, some of the audiences in Vegas can be a little fickle, you know, because I mean, depending on what night of the week, they might be super drunk, or you know, they might have gotten in on a discount ticket. So I mean, it's just you don't know what you're gonna get. And so they were a nice enough crowd, but they would just kind of shut down on you super quick. They would forget that they liked you, you know? And so I was doing great, my whole set. Everything was going wonderful. And they were like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then I started this long story that I have, and they were just not liking it. And I'm like, well, this is the longest story I have, so I can't tell half of it. I have to tell the whole thing. So you just power through it, man. I mean, you power through it. I commented on it. I was like, shame on y'all for being so dope this whole time, but not wanting to get this super strange with me. I see how it is. I see how it is. I ripped out the strap on too quick in the bedroom. We didn't have a conversation soon enough. You know, like, I get it. Yeah, I'm the weird one who whoop out the toy too quick. Okay, fine. So very much so I had that energy. You just power through it, man. It's okay. You got a couple jokes at the end and you're like, all right, these will probably work.
You needed a safety word.
Exactly. The audience needed a safe word 100%. They needed to be like, oh, no, banana. No, I don't. No, I don't do that. No. It was a one time in college. It didn't go well. I don't do that anymore. Thank you. And I'd be like, oh, okay, perfect. Let me put this away then. It's okay. Yeah, it's all good. Just act like it didn't happen. So yeah, man, those ones are hard. You just power through, do the best you can, but you'll get another look. You never get the same audience twice. It's the best part about stand-up.
Before you go on stage, right? You probably have your routine, right? I see you're drinking. I think that's milk, or that's the liquidest White Russian I've ever seen.
Yeah, this is more of a White Russian. This is it's like a peppermint vodka, like eggnog from Trader Joe's. Yeah, I got this. And this stuff is proof too. Like,
interesting.
It's pretty good. Yeah, it's good stuff.
So before you go on stage, would you have a drink or would you review your set? I mean, what's your routine?
Man, dude, I do not know. This is the only time I drink. This is drinking a lot for me. I don't drink. I'm not. Yeah. So I mean, this was something sweet. My wife was like, yeah, you should drink it. It's more like she's pregnant. She's like, I want to know if this tastes good, so you're gonna drink it. And I'm like, okay. And now I have to finish it. So yeah, man, like this is me just kind of having a casual drink. I'm not a drinker. I don't like it. I'm not a big fan of it at all. And I smoke weed, but I mean, I don't do anything before I go on stage because I got it all. It's kind of a hyper focus state that I get into where I'm just like ultra in the moment. And I don't like to mess with that unless it's been advertised as that. I've done shows where it's like it's advertised that the comics are going to do a set drunk or they're going to do a set high.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, they're fun.
Is that common? I don't think I've ever heard that before.
Yeah, they don't do them for drinking anymore because too many comics have that problem. So they don't do them for drinking anymore, but they still do it for weed. They're called the gateway shows or these 420 friendly shows. But yeah, man, they get you go up, you do a set sober, and then they take an intermission, and everybody goes outside and gets baked as fuck. And then everybody goes up and does like another 10 minutes. And so, yeah, I've done those, and those are super fun because they're advertised that way. So it's like, oh yeah, here's we're all doing this stuff together. Yay. And it's not like, I think he's got a problem, you know, like, cause that's not good at all. So, but you
can tell your worst joke and still get a laugh.
Exactly. I was a little lit on my birthday because my birthday was last week and I was doing a show.
Happy belated birthday.
Thank you. And so I did get a little tipsy. But I'm really funny when I'm drunk, and that's the problem. So that's where I just like it. For me, it's like letting Beetlejuice out. I can let him out once a year. And I'm like, okay, I get it. Yeah, sandworms, you ate them, right? I get it. Like, I let him out to play once a year. I put him right back in the bottle. Like, I
That's
definitely don't want him
hilarious.
running amok. But yeah, I've had bookers try and get me drunk on purpose after that, and I was like, no, no, I'm not going to do that. You get one. It's only fun once. It's not fun a second or a third time. It's lightning in a bottle. You got to let it be what it be. Before a set, though, usually, man, I get really relaxed. I try and watch the show, or I like having a conversation with somebody, just something that takes me completely out of what I'm about to do. My favorite thing is just having a like deep conversation with somebody and being like, hang on, I'll be right back. And then going and doing my set and then coming back to finish the conversation. Because I mean, once you've got the set order in your head, you kind of got to rip it up anyway. Because at the end of the day, you still don't know what's going to happen out there.
True.
Anything, this is the plan, but that plan goes straight to hell so much. Like, I've been doing this long enough to know that the plan is often hilarious that you thought it was going to go that way. So I just kind of go, okay, yeah, this is kind of what I want to do. This is where I want to take it. This is what I want to try out. And then, but also there's some of that that's like the first 5 minutes where you're just feeling them out. And you're just like, okay, well, they didn't really like that. Do I need to change something else? Do I need to try this? Do I need to try that? Do I need to start going through the Rolodex of old jokes? Do I need to try my fail safe joke to see if it's me or them? Like, there's a lot of things that you got to figure out once you get up there. But before the show, I gotta usually just try and talk to somebody, because if I'm just sitting, I'll fall asleep because I get really relaxed before I go on stage. And one time I fell asleep in the green room and they were like kicking me. They're like, hey, he said your name. I'm like, no. And I ran on stage and I'm like, hold on, give me a minute. And yeah, it was rough. But yeah, I get super relaxed. I get very zen before I go on stage, man. So yeah, I usually got to kind of wake myself up in the first minute or two getting on there.
You've done and accomplished quite a bit, from the festivals to traveling around to to doing the dry bar special to coming out with your new special on YouTube, 1212. And you mentioned that like kind of that depression that happens after you hit that milestone, right? So what does Myles Weber want now? Like what's that next milestone?
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely. That is what it is now. I've gone from Miles High Club to chasing the milestones. Yeah, like my own Thanos. Yeah, man. It's been a complete redirect, oddly enough, because yeah, I knew I was gonna do this special, and then I knew it was going to be kind of like my last hurrah before taking a break. I always thought if I was going to take kind of a break from stand up, at least touring, I'm taking a break from touring. I'm still performing here in Vegas here and there, but not weekly, maybe like once or twice a month I'll do a week or something. But taking a break from touring, I always thought that would be like a bad thing or like a bad reason. And I'm actually fine with it. Like I'm redirecting myself right now to starting my own business from home. I'm starting a life coaching company for entertainers specifically.
Awesome.
Yeah, man. So I'm really excited to be starting that, because I think it, just going through the pandemic last year and just seeing what happened to entertainers and how quickly we got disregarded as non-essential. And I was like, y'all would be losing your minds without YouTube, Hulu, Netflix, all the
Yeah, I
stuff.
mean, think of all the content that now everybody absorbs
Yeah.
constantly.
You all weren't meditating at home. You all weren't sitting there making model planes with your children. No, you were watching shit. You were watching us be dancing monkeys, and we got disregarded very quickly. And I saw a lot of my brothers and sisters in entertainment suffer across the board, not just comics. I know mentalists who are going through a hard time. I mean, dancers, musicians, singers, like the whole nine. So told my wife, I was like, man, this sucks. Like we should at least have like somebody to talk to, or somebody like game plan, like what do we do from here, like where do we go? And she's like, why don't you just make that? And I'm like, I mean, yeah, like, I guess I could. And so then it was just like this nagging thing that was like keeping me up at night. And I'm like, no one's going to do this, huh? Okay, fine. So I'm going to make this life coaching company for entertainers of all levels. If you're trying to get into the entertainment industry, it's good for you. If you're somebody who's in and you're dealing with post achievement depression, we can help you out with that too. If you're trying to get a better work-life balance, that's the other thing, trying to help entertainers not be so notoriously divorced. How many times? Like, that's always the running joke of like, oh yeah, he's got all these millions, but he's on his third marriage. And it's like, yeah, there's probably a reason for that.
Right.
Like, at what point do you kind of balance things out and figure out, what is this art that I'm creating? What hole is it trying to fill that it's clearly not filling like I thought it was? Like, how do I fix that hole? So yeah, man, that being able to redirect my energy to that right now, and also just being a first time dad. Yeah, I'm super stoked at the completely different person that I'm inevitably going to become from this. And I mean, the material will definitely be there. And I think that when I do get to come back to touring and stand up, whenever that is, I think stand up's going to kind of grow into something different than what it has been for this whole time. I mean, I think it's going to be more of a storytelling outing. And that really excites me because I love telling funny stories. And so I'm definitely going to have no shortage of funny stories being a first time dad and doing all these things that I'm doing right now. But it is very interesting that just when my career started going really good, I'm like, we're going to stop here for a little bit.
It's interesting you say that because I've heard quite a few. I mean, and everybody has their own reasons, right? You have your own reasons to kind of step away. Everybody has their own different reasons, but I've kind of heard quite a few pretty well-renowned comedians kind of just say, I'm going to just we're going to pause. Right.
Yeah.
And do you think it's more of kind of like the society of what we were talking about of like how comedy's kind of going through and needs to work out? Or is it just kind of through that cycle? Cause we've had, a lot of the big name comedians, and I guess there's a circle to it, but a lot of them have been trying to get to that top echelon for a long time. They're there. And now they're all pausing at once.
Yeah, it has been a thing that's been happening amongst comedians, amongst entertainers. I think even I
Right.
saw Ryan Reynolds was saying, he's like, yeah, I'm going to take a break for a little while. I've been doing too much shit. And so, yeah, it is kind of become a thing right now where a lot of entertainers are just going, I'm going to pause and reflect right here. I think a lot of it is very pandemic and societal related, like we were talking about earlier. Honestly, I think that's the root of it. I think this is a very different time in history right now, a very uncertain time, going forward. Everybody just kind of doesn't really know how. We all kind of feel like the system's going to break real soon. We just don't know when. And so everybody's just kind of bracing for the fall at this point. And so I think we have to kind of go through the fall before you're going to see a lot of avenues of entertainment and new forms of that type of artistry evolve into what it is going to be. Because entertainment is always kind of the thing that pulls the society through things, right? Usually whenever there's a lot of chaos and anarchy in societies, the art is the thing that is the driving force and the steady beating of the drum to change. And so it's going to be super cool to see what all of these avenues become, what stand-up becomes, what acting becomes, what performing in a theatrical play, what that is, what does spoken word come back, is beat poetry going to be a thing, how can we make those types of words a thing, what's going to happen to music, what kind of music is going to come after things go sideways. But I think everybody's kind of collectively just going, But also because of 2020 and everything, I felt like that was kind of the great pause that made you had to kind of look at your shit and see what you were doing. And you kind of had to all reevaluated. All of us who had to take that pause, we all reevaluated what we were doing in our lives and being like, is this really what I want to be spending my time doing? Like, is this really what's making me happy, or is this not it? And a lot of people completely flipped their ship and started going a different way. And so I super duper went a different way. If there was no pandemic, I would be in a completely different space right now. Like it's insane to think about. So I think as a side effect of that great pause, there's a lot of people who, if they didn't work on themselves during the pandemic, I'm seeing that they're having a hard time now. And those people are starting to go, okay, I need to work on myself now, actually, because I thought this was just going to blow over. And apparently nothing's ever going to be the same again. So I need to kind of work on that. And then there's other people who are like, oh no, I'm picking up a new project and doing this different thing entirely. So yeah, man, I think it's a mixed bag of a lot of things, but really it's a lot of what we talked about earlier.
Yeah,
You said
so
you
I
have a,
kind of want
oh,
to.
good.
Oh, sorry. I kind of want to just backtrack a little bit about your new business because I love that idea. I feel like that definitely needs to be out there, and good for you for taking the initiative. And you always hear that, like, what do you mean that comic was depressed? He's so funny. Like, how can he be depressed? Just listen to his jokes. And it's there's a lot of darkness behind it, and sometimes you always do just need that extra push from someone, whoever it may be, someone or just a complete stranger. What's one of the things that helped you get past all that? Like, what do you focus in on when you were like, okay, now I've had this post achievement depression. What did you use to help you get through it all?
I mean, my family and my friends, the people that I loved. I mean, that was the biggest thing, and just now refocusing my energy to do things for others. Because I think when we as entertainers get into these things, if you set these goals, but these goals tend to be very selfish and very, one person's kind of. Ultimately, my goal was I want to do a stand-up special that is widely distributed to a large audience. That was my goal and has been for my whole life almost up to this point. And that is a very like me thing to do. Why I don't want the special out for everybody to enjoy, of course, but also like, yeah, man, this is cool. I get to do this thing and look at me. Isn't this dope? So I've noticed that if the endeavor tends to be a little bit selfish, then yeah, you kind of do fall off the back end. Whereas if
Mm.
you're doing things for the sake of like helping people, tends to feel a lot better. And I love people dump their shit on me all the time. Like I just got one of those personalities and faces that people are just like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I turned this into a therapy session and just told you my whole life story upon meeting you." And I'm like, "That's fine. Everybody does that." So, and I don't mind it. I enjoy it because if I can say one thing that gets somebody going, I never thought about that. Like I planted a few seeds in people this year that I've just now seen to start bear fruit, and I'm like, "Oh man, I didn't even know that I had that deep of an impact on you." And that's super duper cool. And so the thought of trying to grow entertainment as a whole and as an industry just by healing that trauma, because like what you said, man, we're fucked up. Like that's kind of the crying clown joke, right? I
Yeah.
mean, we comedians they've done studies linking having a very good sense of humor and a wide sense of humor to trauma. I mean, past trauma, being able to find the humor in a dark situation. That's the light that gets you through these dark situations in life. Having to use your humor as a self-defense mechanism is usually a stepping stone to turning it into a profession. And that's how we all started as comedians. But you've got actors and actresses and musicians who had parents who were Nicki Minaj's dad tried to light their house on fire while her mom was inside still. Dear God, like stuff like that. Halle Berry had a childhood that rivaled Precious. Oprah Winfrey, oh my Lord, I wouldn't watch it on Lifetime if it was an original movie. Jim Carrey was homeless for a lot of his childhood, So yeah, man, there's so much linked to and studies that they've done linking trauma to the creative process. And there's something about that a person who has experienced deep trauma or extended trauma throughout their childhood or even in their adult life, they have this ability to be able to hyper focus on creativity, and that becomes the thing that is their meditation that takes them away from this trauma that's happening. They can always go to this creative space. And so I'm now trying to get to a point where I'm like, yeah, but what if healing that trauma that you used to create was the thing that was going to really project your shit up to the moon? Like,
Right.
imagine the good stuff you're doing right now unhealed. Think of the stuff you can do when you're doing it for the sake of it and not for the sake of feeling whole. So, yeah,
It's not
man.
going to make someone unfunny to like heal yourself, right?
Right.
It's
You would be surprised how many comics think that, though.
wow.
Who think that like, nah, man, this is this is the Joker to my Batman. I can't
Mm.
kill him. Like, I just got to put him in jail and let him get out, and then we'll have a new 52. I mean, like, I've had that conversation with an unfortunate amount of entertainers who just think that that's what makes them entertaining, or the damage is like a battle scar. And I'm like, I hope that one day you think otherwise and can move up, or maybe you turn it into a superpower and prove me wrong. I hope that happens too.
you got a lot of new exciting stuff coming your way. You know, the new
Oh
company,
yeah.
you got a kid coming. Do you know, when, like, boy, girl, or is that a secret?
Boy.
Boy,
Yeah. Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. Boy. Yeah. 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 Robin with a Y. Robin John
Nice.
Weber. Yes. Absolutely.
That's going to be a life-changing event. You're going to have a new business trying to help people. 2022 is going to be a spectacular year for you, and I hope nothing but the best for you, and you can help as many comics and other people in the entertainment space as possible.
Hell yeah, homie. Thanks, man. Absolutely. It's gonna be wild. Yeah, the fatherhood thing's gonna be an interesting thing. I'm really looking forward to it, but I'm gonna be very tired for a while.
Is there one thing that you're like psyched about, and then one thing you're like, people have warned? I mean, everybody. I don't have personally kids. Michael has kids. Like, you always hear like, oh, it's the best thing, and then you see them and they're like exhausted and tired, and so
I mean, it's one of those things in life where the best things in life are a paradox.
true.
You know, the things that are the sweetest in life that mean the most to you are both the best thing that have ever happened to you and the biggest nightmare of all time. And so I know that there will be lots of poopy diapers, which I'm not looking forward to. But I also know that it's gonna be under the pretenses of like, oh, homie, I love you, I got you. You didn't mean to do this. If you could, if you knew how to fix this, you would do it, but you don't. So I got you. Like, so it's gonna be very interesting, man. I'm really looking forward to. Can I learn as much as I intend on teaching? Yeah, I'm gonna teach this tiny human how like things are working and where we should go from here, but also like be a good person and how can you teach me how to be more of a kid again? Because I think that's part of the give and take is like
Yeah.
kids are supposed to teach you how to kind of come back down to earth. Be like, hey, remember back here when it was fun? And it was all in front of you, and we just wanted to walk around naked and eat berries and just play all day. Like, come back down to earth, man. So I'm looking forward to that. Obviously, the diapers has been the only thing that I'm like, yeah, I could take or leave the sleep, but I've heard of back shits, and I'm like, how does it even get up there?
Just
Like,
explodes.
it's crazy, right? It's crazy. So yeah, man, like it's gonna be gnarly for the diaper years, but I'm excited to because I talked about it in my special how I kind of like knew the things I wanted to do with my kids because I learned how not to do with my dad. So I kind of touch on that in the special that's coming out soon. But yeah, man, I'm excited to see what the process is. You kind of have a game plan of like how you think you're going to do it. So you're excited to execute the plan. But like I said, yeah, the plan is just hilarious. Like, I think kids come pre-downloaded how they're going to be. And I think if we mess with it too much, that's where you get a lot of the friction. So I'm just excited to see who this new human that's going to be living in my house for the next 18-ish years is going to be. I'm excited to meet him.
Well, one last question. I'll put you on the
Totally.
spot,
Yeah.
but I want to end on a joke. Do you remember the first joke you ever wrote?
Oh my God. The first one I ever wrote, it was probably filthy. The first set I ever
Yes.
did, it was absolutely filthy. And I invited a bunch of my friends and I was like, if you don't think laugh. And then if you don't think I'm funny, just tell me afterwards. But like really sell it because I just couldn't take the failure. And so they're like, no, you were really funny. And then I went back the next week with nobody and I bombed. And I was like, oh, okay, this is it for life for me then. And so, but there was a joke that I remembered that it was within my first year of doing stand up that worked the first time I did it, but never again. And I could never figure out why. But I always thought there was something there. And it was about a billboard advertisement that I saw when I was driving. And it just said, learn how to read. And I was like, oh, I don't think someone understood the assignment. Like, I don't know who that billboard is for. Like, this would have been a better radio advertisement. I think they missed the mark here. And so it was like a premise that I thought was funny. And like, I said it on stage and it got a laugh the first time. And then from then on, people were just like, okay. Like no one cared. And so that was one that I remember from my early on years that I could never figure out how I've gone back and revisited it now with fresh eyes and told it to the comics. They're like, yeah, I guess that's just like you found the one funny observation that is just that. Like, it's just like an interesting observation. There's not really very many places you can go with it. And so I'm like, okay, fair enough. Right on. Caught the unicorn. But yeah, that was something from my early days that I was like, oh my God, I don't know how this works.
Myles, thanks for joining us. I greatly appreciate it. We'll get this out tomorrow, and then on social media we'll just tag you in it when it goes out. It'll be on Spotify, Apple, all that fun
Totally,
jazz. Man. And but I appreciate it. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking with you, and best of luck in 2022.
Right on, man. Thanks, guys, for having me. I appreciate you. I'll talk to y'all later.
Sure.
Have a good one.
Thanks, Myles.
Take
Have a
care.
good night.